For years, I've been trying to figure out the best way to make techno kicks, and I finally cracked the code. And the best part is I'm giving this rack away completely for free. So I've spent the past 5 years of my life trying to figure out the best way to make techno kicks. And each time I think I got it, I'm like so excited about it. I'm so hyped. I'm texting all my friends. But then I'll just realize that there's something missing and it's just not quite sounding right. But I can finally say that I found the best and the fastest way to make techno kicks. And it's absolutely been a game changer for my productions. So first I'm going to show you the rack, show you a little preview of how it sounds. And then I'm going to walk you through the method that inspired me to make this rack, and then really dive into how the rack works. Also, this rack is completely free. It's available for download. So go to the description and check out the link and download that now. So this is the Divinity Techno Kick Generator. This is an Ableton instrument rack that is made up of 5 samplers stacked on top of each other, playing in parallel. So each one of the samplers is loaded up with a bunch of different files, which are basically layers that make up a techno kick. And when you combine them all, when you layer them all together, it makes one full and amazing sounding techno kick. The rack also comes equipped with 16 macro knobs, so we can fine tune the kick. We can swap the samples really fast. We can pitch some of the layers up and down. We can adjust the volume of each layer, and we can even add some post-processing. It also comes equipped with this random button, so we can randomize the parameters and get different results every time. And it comes with 50 presets, so we can save the macro positions we like and recall them at any time. So this thing is just an absolute beast, and it offers so much control and customization. So we have this rack loaded onto a MIDI track, and we made a 1-bar MIDI clip, and we have quarter notes at C3. And since the rack is built using samplers, we want to use C3 so it plays the note at its default pitch. So if we press play, it sounds like this. Like perfect. It sounds so good. And now let's just flip through some of these presets so you can hear what this thing's capable of. So you get the idea. I mean, these kicks sound so good, and this is just such a useful tool. It speeds up my productions so much. So before I dive deeper into how the rack works, I want to show you the method that inspired me to create this rack. And that method is called the kick builder method. The kick builder method is essentially a method where you take a bunch of different individual layers that are like the building blocks of a techno kick, and you can mix and match them and stack them on top of each other. And when you combine them all together, it makes a full sounding techno kick. This is really useful because you can swap out different parts of the kick and really fine tune it and make it your own. You can also process the layers individually. You can pitch the layers up and down. You can slide them left and right, shorten them. You can do so much. So I'll just show you a quick example of how that works. I'm gonna make 5 audio tracks and we'll group these together. We'll call this kick builder. So next I'm gonna add an Ableton limiter, and then I'm gonna add this plugin called Ozillo's Megascope. We're gonna put this on our kick builder group, and we're just gonna leave it off to the side so we can look at the waveform of the kick. So I'm gonna set the time base to a quarter note, and then also I'm gonna zoom in here, highlight a quarter note, and hit Command L to make a quarter note loop. So let's go into one of our kick builder packs, and we've already released 2 of these. One of them is called the Underworld Techno Kick Builder Pack. The other one is called the Unholy Hard Techno Kick Builder Pack. I'll leave the link to those in the description if you want to check them out. But today we're going to be going through the Underworld Techno Kick Builder. So we have mid punch kicks, low punches, low rumbles, top kicks, reverb gates. These are like the 5 essential layers I think you need to make a techno kick. So let's just start with the mid punch. This is like the front end of the kick, like the transient. It has a lot more character than like a top kick would have. And we'll see that when we go through that folder, but let's just pick one of these. I really like this one. This one's like super punchy and clean. So if we loop this and press play, it sounds like this. And we can see on our oscilloscope what that kick looks like. So the next thing we want to add is a low punch to give it like more of like a subby punch in the low end. These samples aren't really anything special, but they work. So I really like this one. Let's drag this one in. And you can hear it changes the overall timbre of the kick, and I think it just adds a little bit more like oomph in the low end. And you can see on our oscilloscope, our waveform has now changed. We've introduced a bit of phasing. It's not a big deal. We're going to handle that at the end. But the reason why I like adding these low punches is because you can move them. You can actually nudge them back, and it gives the kick an entirely different sound. So sometimes it doesn't always sound great in the front. So I kind of like it right here. Let's move it back a little. I like it right there. And we're not going to worry about the phasing right now. We're just focused on how it's sounding. So then the next part of the kick is the low rumble. And this is like the tail of the kick, the bass. So let's just add this second one here. And I actually like this fifth one. Just has an interesting groove to it. So you can see I'm just dragging and dropping, and I'm able to switch the low end of the kick like so fast. So then we can add a top kick. And this is more like a top end transient. So like, let's take this one for instance. It really adds a lot of presence to the kick. And something I might want to do is maybe pitch this up a bit. And now you can see how we can adjust like the fine parts of this kick. So then let's move on to the reverb gate. We'll just drag one of these in, and I'm going to turn this channel down a lot. So you can do so much more with that, but I just wanted to demonstrate the kick builder approach and why it works so well. So while the kick builder method is amazing in itself, I thought to myself, can I make this better? Can I make this faster? Can I turn this into an Ableton rack? And that's exactly what I did. So let's go back to the rack and see what's going on here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag this Megascope onto the rack. Now that you know the individual layers that make up a techno kick, you can see that they're represented in this rack. We have the mid punch, the low punch, the rumble, top kick, and the gate effects, so like the reverb gate. So all of these macro knobs right here, this will actually swap the sample for us just by turning the knob. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to turn the volume down for each one of these layers, and I'm just going to be playing the mid punch. And let's pitch this back down to 0. So if I want to switch the sample that's playing, I can just turn this knob. So now let's add our low punch, and I'll show you how that works too. So we'll turn up the gain for the low punch. And I really like the sound of that, and I think this waveform actually looks really good. So just by adjusting the mid punch and the low punch, we're getting a really solid like front end of our kick. So now let's turn up the rumble gain, and we'll start to bring some low end and some bass into this kick. And it's so easy to just swap out the low end like that. Let's add our top kick. The top kick's a little harder to hear, but I still like it because some of these mid punches don't have that same like top end layer that I'm looking for. So adding the top kick really helps. Now let's add the gate effects. Like that just sounds so good right there. So then for the rest of our macros, we have mid pitch, low pitch, and rumble pitch. The mid pitch is going to adjust the pitch of this mid punch. So you can get a lot of different timbres just by pitching this layer around. And this is why I have this oscilloscope open. It's because you can see that in certain areas, the phase gets really bad. So sometimes I might just want to pitch it around to make sure the phase is good. Then we have our low pitch, which is the pitch of the low punch. And this can drastically affect the sound as well. Then the last one we have is a rumble pitch. And typically I always leave this at 0 because I made these samples and I like the way it sounds. Also, if you pitch it up and down, it will affect the speed. So these samples were made at 135 BPM and I'm at 135 right now. So if I pitch this up, it's going to affect the rate and that's going to affect the groove. So sometimes I play with it, sometimes I don't. So extremely useful. Then the last 3 macros we have are extra rumble, low shift, and limiter. So extra rumble is just an echo with a little bit of reverb that I added. And I'm gonna turn down the actual rumble so you can hear what this sounds like. And if you want, you can hit this map button and I think we can actually turn it up here. Yeah, so right here, extra rumble. We can go in and we can customize this. If we want this to be a little bit louder, we can turn that to like -5. I like it at -10, so I'm gonna go back into the mapping and bring this back down to -10. But you can adjust the parameters of all of this. So extra rumble just adds a bit of that echo. It adds a tiny bit of groove, which is classic in techno. So let's close this back up. Then we have low shift. This is a really interesting setting that I added to this. So remember in the kick builder when we were moving this layer, this low punch layer back and forth? Well, that's exactly what this macro knob does. So if we turn everything down besides the low punch, you can actually see this layer. Let's turn down the extra rumble too. You can actually see this layer is a little bit delayed, and we can have it, if we turn this knob all the way to the left, it will play immediately. And if we turn it all the way to the right, we can introduce some delay, just like we did in the kick builder. So let's turn this all the way to the left at 0, and you'll see the sample starts exactly at the start of the kick. Now I'm gonna press play and turn it up, and you'll see the sample moving back. So this is a really handy way to just automate that process instead of nudging the sample back and forth. So then the last macro is a limiter, and that is just gonna allow us to slam this into the ceiling. So if we turn this all the way down, you can see it still has a big transient. The bass isn't super loud, but we can slam this all the way up. And it just beefs up the kick, but I really like it around this 85 mark. I just think it sounds the best right there. So then the last part I wanna show you is probably my favorite feature of the rack and pretty much why I made it. And that is the random button. So to demonstrate this, I'm gonna go into this group right here. I made a little loop. It has some perk loops, some hat loops, and a kick. And I just wanted to demonstrate what this sounds like in context with other elements that you'd find in a song. So let's listen to this loop real quick. It sounds so good. Let's drag this oscilloscope onto our kick in this section. So you can see that some of these knobs actually aren't moving when I click random, and that's because if you right click, you can hit exclude macro from randomizations. And I just did this because these knobs do not sound good randomized because they just don't, okay? I put a lot of time into setting up these macro knobs. These are some macro knobs that do not sound good randomized. So let's go back to our kick 3 preset. If we press play, we can just spam this random button and get different results every time. So let's open up our oscilloscope and start making some random kicks. Okay, so I really like this one, and this actually brings me into my next point and the other feature why I love this rack. So if you find a combination that you really like and you might want to access it later or just, save it, you can actually go into this macro control variation section, which are essentially like stored presets. And if you hit this new button at the top, you can title this Kick 53 and make a new preset. And so if we click on another preset, we can recall the preset that we just saved just by clicking this play button right here. So if you're like, okay, I love that, but I think I might want to try some other kicks out, just keep randomizing. Ooh, and that one sounds really good. So then you just hit the new button again, rename it Kick 54, and now you have a few different options. So this is great when you're writing a song and you're testing out a few different kicks. Just a really fast and easy way to do it. So again, this kick rack has been an absolute game changer in my productions. It's sped up one of the most complicated parts of writing techno, and that is making the kick. And it just kind of takes the guesswork out of it. So this is the way I've been making most of my kicks for like the last year. And I'm super excited to be able to share this rack with you guys. A lot of you have been asking for it. And I was thinking like, okay, maybe we could put it out as its own product. But I said, you know what? Let's just put it out for free. I want to see what you guys do with it, and I just want to hear it in some more tracks. So if you want a copy of the rack, check out the link in the descriptions. You can download it there. And if you've enjoyed this content, definitely give the video a like, subscribe, and yeah, stay tuned for some more videos. Thank you guys. My name is Vince with Graveyard Sounds.